unavoidable rules of the labor market. I feel like there is one rule. For most people that don't know, I'm a Christian, so I that's my faith. And I tried as much as possible to study scriptures. In fact, guides how I do business and how I read people. And so I've always come back to this scripture when I have to talk to people about this, something that regarding this. So people always want to know what is the rules governing the labor market, right? And how can I employ those rules so that I can be favored in the labor market? And I'll just tell you exactly what Jesus actually told his disciples, which is very similar because he was sending them in quotes into the labor market too as well. And then he gave an instruction to them. And the instruction is simple. Be wise as serpents and as innocent as doves. I have found out over time that if you are going to bring all the rules that you could think about, you would encapsulate it into this particular rule. Be wise as serpents and be innocent as doves. Be wise as serpents means that you have to be very strategic in how you go about certain situations or how you go about every single thing in your career. You have to be wise. And wisdom means wisdom, right? You really have to be wise. You really have to be strategic. It takes deliberate thinking to actually succeed in the labor market. It takes deliberate thinking. It's not a game of chance. It's not when you see people succeeding, it's not that they might have had one or two lucky breaks, but those guys, every single person you see succeeding was very strategic. It was not a mistake. You can't mistake your way to the top. I'm sorry, but it's not possible. So you have to ensure that you're actually very strategic. The same Jesus actually said in another scripture, he said, which of you wanting to build a city would not sit down first and count the cost, right? It's the same thing. If you want to achieve a particular result, you have to decide, sit back, think, decide, how am I going to get this done? What is the plan? So you have to be, you can't be naive, you can't be ignorant, you can't say you don't know. You can't say, well, anything that just happens, happens. You can't say if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, no, I'm sorry, but that's not how it's done. Every single person who has made a mark is deliberate about what they do. So you have to be wise. You have to apply wisdom. You have to be a person of wisdom. You have to learn from the experiences of other people. Get as much experience as you can in that particular field. Speak to other people, read biographies, pack as much information as you can about that particular field or about that particular situation that you're going to encounter. And the truth is, if you have done your homework very well and you're entering into a particular field, you're going to have an idea of some of the situations that you would face, right? You need time to actually sit back and think about this and then know when it gets to this point, how am I going to address this? How am I going to differentiate myself from the thousands or millions of other job seekers? How am I going to differentiate myself from the thousands of other people who have this particular skill? That's where wisdom comes in. That's where strategy comes in, right? So you have to be very wise. You have to be very crafty in a good way, right? Wisdom, strategic. You have to be very wise. You have to be very strategic. So when you go into the office, you are playing a long game. Every single person there might be just wanting to get a salary day to day or wanting to just get stuff done day to day, but you are playing a long game. Someone who is wise as a serpent plays the long game. So you are not looking at just the end of the month to collect your salary. You're looking at 5 years from now. What do I want to do in 5 years and how do I get there? Who are the decision makers in the office? Who are the people that can actually sponsor me into this position that I want to get into? How do I How do I build relationships with them? Right. So it's important that you have to be strategic about these things. If there are certain people that you know that these guys can fast track my promotions or my career trajectory, then you have to find a way to get to them. There's nothing bad about it. It's being wise, is being strategic about certain things, right? So it's important. I would say it again, that you are wise. It's important that you play the long game. It's important that you're not just looking at the short-term idea or the short-term event or the short-term solution or the short-term picture. Have a long-term view of what you intend to achieve, right? So be wise as serpents and be innocent as doves. Now, innocence in this case it will probably refer to how you actually choose to relate with people. The biggest force responsible for success is people. I cannot stress this enough. People are too important for you to treat just anyhow, right? You have to take genuine, authentic interest in people. Now, you can't manipulate people, because if you try manipulating people, they can tell. Your interest in people has to be genuine. Even though you might get some certain things from them, it's terrible if that's the only thing that you get attached to people for. So in my career, I can point out to you the job I occupy now. Someone actually referred me to. It was a closed opportunity. It was not advertised. Someone actually referred me to my current employer. Right. So it's important that you value people. I don't know how to stress this enough. It's important that you value people. It's important that you treat people well. In your interactions with people, try as much as possible to be harmless. Even though you're being very strategic, even though you're being very wise in your dealings, try as much as possible, even in situations where you have to harm people. I'll give an example. When you have to let someone go from a job, you're probably in a supervisory position, and you need to let someone go. The way you convey the message it can set you apart. I have people that I have let go from certain positions during my career journey, and we are still in very close contact. In fact, if they see me anywhere, they'll still say, "Ah, well done, sir." Why? Because of the way in which I took the process to let them go. So people are very invaluable. People are important. You can't. The way you treat people is going to affect the kind of opportunities you have. Now, I always like to look at people as bridges, right? So when you meet someone, if you act right, then it's like a bridge into a whole new world. Now, Kenny was the one who reached out to me about this opportunity to speak at this. If I didn't know Kenny, I probably wouldn't be here. If I had treated Kenny anyhow, I probably wouldn't be here also, right? So he was able to reach out to me and say, "Would you want to speak in this meeting, sir?" Because of the kind of relationship that we have built. If I didn't value him, he wouldn't have come into. So please, as much as possible, treat people right. Don't be a person of integrity. Don't look to always manipulate people. Don't look to always cheat people. It's going to boom around. It's going to come back and bite you, right? So always learn as much as possible to treat people well. Treat people right. Always anticipate the needs of people. Try as much as possible to fulfill those needs. If you're genuinely interested in people, if you're genuinely interested in your bosses, you would see some of the needs that they've not even spoken about, and then you'll be able to fulfill those needs. And if you can fulfill those needs, then definitely puts you in their good books, right? And then it's just a cycle from there going onwards, right? So it's okay. It's just like that. So treat people well and then be very wise in your dealings. That's basically what the labor market is about. Your skills will get you in the door most times, but it's how you relate to people, how you manage people, how you manage your relationships that will determine how far you go in your career. Right? So at a certain point in time, skill has a ceiling. If you're going to break above that ceiling, people have to take you. People have to refer you. People have to recommend you above that ceiling. Right? So it gets to a place where it's not about your skill anymore. It's about who do you know, or who likes you, or it's everywhere in the world. It's not a Nigerian thing. It's a global thing, right? So it's who likes you, who can vouch for you, who can recommend you, who has worked with you before. These are some of the things. So even when you're leaving a particular job, you don't leave it in bad faith. Yesterday, I still got calls from someone I worked with in 2017 who referred an opportunity to me. This is 2017, right? But because I had a very good relationship with this person, I treated this person, even till tomorrow, this person will still reach out. There's this opportunity. Would you want it? Right? So it's important that if you want to go far, treat people well, treat people very well. Be strategic in your dealings and treat people well, right? I'll talk about personal branding. I think that's the last thing I'll talk about. So I said here that perception is reality. And so personal branding is more like I think it's more like a cataclysm of how you see yourself and then how others see you. You have to be deliberate about personal branding. You have to be deliberate about branding yourself in a certain way. When people think about you, when people mention your name, what's the first thing that comes to mind? You have to be deliberate about creating a particular picture to people. In our world, perception is actually reality. So even if you feel like you're not this thing and people think you are that thing to the entire world. If I am competent at my job and people think I'm incompetent, right? If everybody perceives or sees me as incompetent, then I'm incompetent, even though I am competent, right? So it's important that you balance how people see you and how you see yourself. Now, of course, personal branding actually starts from how you see yourself, and then it then flows into what you put up, how you choose people to actually see you, right? So every single interaction that you have with people, you are giving off a brand of yourself. You're giving off an idea of yourself to people. So when people mention my name, they know me for certain things, right? They know me as someone who loves God. They know me as someone who is passionate about businesses. They know me as someone who is authentic and genuine, with an authentic and genuine interest in people. In fact, my friends will call me, they don't call me CEO, they call me CCO, Chief Celebration Officer, because I'm genuinely interested in celebrating people and bringing out the best in people. So when you mention my name, that's the first thing most people think about, right? They think about, oh, that guy that is actually very passionate about business, or that guy that actually loves God to fault, or that guy that is genuinely very interested in people. It's a brand that I've cultivated over time. Every single one of my interactions with people has been in that light, right? It's important that also translates into social media. Now, most times, because it's social media and there's a pseudo anonymity, right? Most people just feel like they can be anyhow. You can't be anyhow on social media. It's also a part of your brand. It's also a part of your person. And I would be honest with you, people actually get jobs of social media. I know for a fact that in my company, when we want to work with facilitators, we actually check up their social media profiles. It's a prerequisite. We can't do without it. In fact, my boss will not agree to hire someone who he has not scoured his social media profile. You can't get him. I'm sorry, we can't work with you. And so in as much as possible, please be visible on social media. Put yourself out there. You can't give excuses. You can't say I'm an introvert. I'm sorry, but it doesn't work. You're an introvert. Yes, you can be introverted in your house. I am an introvert too, as well. Most people can never tell because I've actually built up myself now to relate well with people, like very well. After this meeting, I'm actually supposed to be somewhere else, actually relating with people. You can say I'm an introvert and choose to sit in your house, but it doesn't help you. So the fact is, if you don't choose to brand yourself in a certain way, you would be branded. So it's either you decide to act or you'll be acted upon, right? So please, as much as possible, have a picture of what you would want to be known for, and then begin to tailor your interactions, every single thing that you put out there, begin to tailor it towards that particular brand. Right. So when I make posts on WhatsApp, and I make posts on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, every single thing revolves around what people already know me for. Right. So it's a personal brand that I'm building for myself. And so when people reach out to me, with opportunities. Sometimes I ask them, why did you reach out to me? They say, well, we know you, you're a person of integrity. We know you, you're actually very competent at these things that you do. We know that you're actually very interested in this particular field, right? So we thought it would be a good fit for us to actually reach out to you. So what's happening is branding. So it's important. It's important as much as possible. Put your skills out there. If you can do certain things and you can do them well, put it up on social media. Let people be able to see it. And then tailor your interactions. Don't just jump into every bandwagon trend just because everybody's doing something, then you now do it. It's not right. You are spoiling your person. People, you are confused. Nigerians will say, you are confusing the angel. They won't know who to bless. It's the same thing, right? But it's the truth. When today you're doing tech, tomorrow you're doing tailoring, tomorrow you're doing food, it's confusing. People are like, what exactly are you doing? They can't tie you to a particular thing. So it's the same thing, right? If today you are pro this thing, you are pro that, then tomorrow you are pro this, tomorrow you are pro this, or every single thing, yeah, you can't pick every single side. You pick the side that you are interested in. You pick the values, the mission the image of yourself that you want to put out there to the world, right? And that's what you should keep pushing. So that when you tell people I do this or this is who I am, and they check across all social media platforms, it's consistent. There's a consistency. We can say, oh wow, this guy is actually across. In fact, it goes as far as using. What I do is I use one social media, one particular picture across all my social media platforms. Right? So it's easy to identify. When you go on Twitter, you see the same picture. When you go on Facebook, you see the same picture. It's everywhere. So it's easy if you're jumping from one platform to the other and you're seeing me. There's a consistency, and my posts are almost the same. So everything is like, this guy is actually really this person that he says he is. So it's important that you build that social brand. It's so important. As the years go by, you would see that brand sometimes is what will separate you from every single other person who has a particular level of skill proficiency. So like I said, it gets to the point where skill has a ceiling. It's now your brand. It's now the people that can say, I know this person for this thing. He's very good at this thing. That's what now takes you higher, right? So I would say that these are some of the things that I have learned in my journey so far. I think if you really dive into some of these things and you really begin to put them into practice, you would actually get off being very employable. And I think I remember one of the topics that was handed to me. It says making use of your NYSC year. I will tell you that the certifications that you saw me have, I got them all in my NYSC year, during my NYSC year, right? So I made that actually very good use of my NYSC year. So don't leave idle time. Don't while away time. Time is the most precious commodity. I know it sounds very cliche, but it's not. It's the most precious commodity that you have. So I'm not very comfortable with having too much idle time. I can take time out to rest, but anytime I start seeing pockets of space that is not used for doing anything, I start getting very anxious. What's going on here? There's something that is missing. I have to put something. So I try to fill up my time with value-adding activities. So if you're someone who is serving or someone who is just got drafted into this is your service year, please take as much as time as possible to build yourself. That's 1 year you are never going to get back again. Right? And it's an opportunity to pull ahead when you eventually leave. So you get certifications if you can. You can learn to code if you want to. You can learn to deepen your proficiency or your technical skill if you want to, but make very good use of the time. So when you're passing out, you're also passing out something else apart from the certificate, right? I don't know. I can't tell you must do this because every single person is different. Your parts are different, but you know what's the best thing. And I think everybody has an idea of what they need to do to succeed. It's just how much are you willing to do it? That's one thing I've learned, right? So if you say you want to be something, I think if you want to be that thing, you have an idea of what it would take to be that person or to achieve that result. It's just many people now want to be motivated from external sources. No, your motivation should be every single day that I wake up, I want to be this person. I want to achieve this thing. And so I'm going to put in the work to achieve it. So I think that's the roundup for me. I think I'm done. So key takeaways, I'll just wrap up again. Key takeaways, please make a decision to learn. be a learning machine, and build technical depth. And when I mean technical depth, ensure you practice your skill again and again and again until you are very good at it. And please remember the goal. The goal is that you are in the top 10% of your field, or the top 1% of your field globally. So every single day that you wake up and you check, you're not in the top 10% of your field, you go at it again, right? So keep improving yourself, keep improving yourself, keep improving yourself every single day. The law of compound effect. One day, all those very little effort you're putting in to improve yourself would eventually pay off if you're consistent with it, right? So build technical depth, and then be very wise in your dealings. Be very strategic in your dealings. You can't mistake your way to the top, right? So be very wise, be very deliberate, set goals, set targets, and then plan out how you're going to achieve those targets. And then treat people well. Treat people very well. Treat people. I would say I have friendships that have my best friend. I've been best friends with him for 18 years. That's 18 solid years, right? I have friends, my co-founders for Pay, I've known them for a decade, that's 10 years. If I am not that kind of person that values relationships, I wouldn't be able to start off Pay with them, right? Because they wouldn't want to start off with me. So it's important that you treat people well, you honor people, that you actually are interested in people, and that you take an interest, a genuine interest in people, right? So build yourself, build your personal brand too as well. Tailor your interactions so that it fits into who you are and who you want people to see you as. And I think if you put this into practice, then you are as good to go as possible. All right, thank you very much. I think I'm done at this point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chinonso. That was a very insightful session. I'm sure every other person on this call is going to agree with that with me. Thank you so much for doing justice to the theme for this evening conference. So we'll just be taking on some questions so that we can close up this meeting for today. So a question just dropped in from Adetutu Adedogun. So it says, do you read books only as it relates to your field?
Okay. So I said that I don't, not just my field. I have very, very diverse interests, and I try as much as possible to be a well-rounded person. So even though I do business and that's my mainstay, I have a core. I think it's important that you have a core in your reading journey or your information journey. So my core is business, innovation, tech. I think also that's my core, right? So I always revolve around that always. But then I foray into various other topics too as well. I go into genetics, Greek mythology, or mythologies of every single kind. I also astrophysics. I think I've mentioned genetics as well, cosmology, basically anything nanotech, everything that I'm quite interested in. So I try as much as possible to read very wide. I read autobiographies. I'm very avid reader of history books. There's a particular history book now that I'm reading that has, I think it's talks about the fall of Rome. And the first 3 volumes, there are 6 volumes, but the first 3 volumes is like 4,000 pages or something like that. And it's a lot for most people, but I'm very interested. So I don't just read in my field. I read a lot in my field, yes, but then I also read outside my field too. It makes for good conversations when you meet people. It makes you a well-rounded person. Yeah. So yeah, it does help.
All right. Sure. Let me read through if there are other questions again.
Okay.
Okay, none for now. So just a quick one, maybe for persons who are already working. What's the timeline to stay with an employer? So if someone gets employed now, so what's the timeline? Because I think I was having a conversation with an employee as an HR person. So he was telling that means, when I take on this employment, I already had a timeline when I'm going to tell you guys goodbye. So I'm like, and we've had the reasons to reject some person's application because of the duration at which they've stayed in their previous work. So the fear is, if you've stayed less than 1 year in your previous place of work, it's a concern for us as an HR person that hope you won't just come on board and in the next 3 months you're out, because the whole process of going through recruitment process is a very hard one. You agree with me? So what's the timeline at which is more durable to say, okay, fine, you've done your best with this employee before you can leave?
I think it ranges for a lot of people, but I think a year. Personally, I think I favor 1 year, 6 months as a person. But I know many companies have very different standards. Some people want 2 years, at 2 years minimum, right? That your last employer before you can move. Some people are okay with a year. Once you have a year and you leave, well, it's fine with them. I usually want to say a year and 6 months because I feel like that's ample time to actually make an impact, right, before you leave. And right, and I think a year and 6 months is fine for me as a person. But it don't situations are, I can't be very absolute because situations are very dynamic, and people are dynamic too. Things change. There are a whole lot of factors that determine the duration people spend in certain organizations and certain jobs. So this is more like a rule that can be broken. Right? So there are many exceptions. You feel like you get a better offer or something that happens to a highly skilled, then in a matter of months you can get a better offer and you feel like it's the right move, right? And it will have impact your career journey, then take it. But usually when I join an organization, I want to stay for at least a year and 6 months. Right? It could be more, it could be a whole lot more, but who knows, right?
Right, so I think the question has a big part from Adeyinka Olorede. So he's asking, considering that misunderstandings are reasons why people leave a job, is it possible to bid a goodbye on a good faith at all times? You talked about relationship and having a good cordial relationship. So in the place of misunderstanding and all of that.
Okay. I left my first job because I had a misunderstanding with my boss. Well, yes, we didn't. After a while, we had agreed on a set of values that the company was going to expand and adhere to. And after a while, he began to drift from those values. And I felt like I couldn't continue with my integrity intact if I couldn't, continue with my integrity. That's why I had to leave. But I tried as much as possible to live on a good note. I think you can live on a good note even with a misunderstanding. Now, the person at that point might not like the fact that you left, or might not like the fact that there's a misunderstanding. But if you actually show respect, now respect doesn't mean that the person's older. It doesn't matter if the person is older or younger. Respect should be that's all right. If you're actually very respectable, if you act in integrity and in good faith, even in the exit process, comport yourself well, then definitely the person might not like you at that particular point in time, but down the road, yes, there's a very good experience. The person would probably see their own faults and then let it all go. And because you've comported yourself well and you tried as much as possible to live in good faith, when they see you years down the line, they would very much be willing to accept you. So yes, even though I had a misunderstanding with my boss at the time, I left on such a good note that I could still go back afterwards and visit him. In fact, I still used to pay them visits from time to time. I would reach out to him on social media. We could still talk. I would see him in certain events and we still had very wonderful conversations. There's no place that I've actually left that I didn't leave with friends or be making friends with basically almost everybody. So every single place I've worked in, I can still basically reach out into the organization and get something if I want to. Right? Even though not every single organization I've worked in I left on the particularly, like I just decided everything was clean, everything was good, no misunderstanding. I think in two places or so we had issues, right? That I just had to, but I comported myself well. Um, there were no exchange of words, there were no heated arguments. I tried as much as possible to be very respectable, to state my views as respectfully as possible, and to explain why I was leaving. This is why I can't do this anymore. I can't do this, I can't do this. And so I have to, please, with all due respect, I have no issues with you or whatever. But just try as much as possible, because that shows it shows as much as possible on your character as a person. How you work on the job and how you leave the job has a profound effect on how people will see you. Right? So even though there might be issues, ensure you've done the possible best. That if someone was to judge the matter later on, they'll be like, you did your best. If this person is still angry, then it's this person's fault, right? But you did your possible best to live on a good note. Try as much as possible, even if you have misunderstandings, clear your desk, clear all pending issues, right? Ensure that if you have deliverables, try and as much as possible to get it done. Leave everything in order, leave a succession notes, leave notes that would help the company run in your absence. Just do all those very simple things so that it's easier for the company to move on, right? So misunderstanding, not misunderstanding, still treat the person well, still treat the company well, and then leave on as high a note as possible.
All right, thank you. So I think we have another drop down. Yes, said Damnola Fa. Okay, I think I'll go with the first name. I'm not seeing the other. Damnola is asking, leaving a job lesser than a year, but more than 6 months to another similar industry, and you leaving because you could start at a higher level than the later. Is that considered all right by HR personnel during recruitment?
Well, it depends on it. I think it depends, right? So if you have a history of leaving every six months, then there's a problem, right? HR will be like, there's an issue, right? But I mean, if it's a one-time thing and it happens, or it's probably 2 times in your career, and you live on a higher note and you get a higher position, it's understandable. It happens once, it happens twice. But if it happens once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, every single time, you just spend 6 months and you're out, everybody's going to be like, well, okay, I don't know, but it now depends on the magnanimity of the HR person, right? If they can overlook that, again, if you're highly skilled and they can overlook that because of the level of your skill, good. Most people would never do that, but then if you can find a way to do it, wonderful, right? So that's it basically. But I wouldn't advise that it's a frequent thing. If it happens once, twice, it's fine. It's okay. So sorry. I left the job too after 6 months. So, but it just happened once. It was a one-time thing. So it happened after 6 months. I had to leave, so I left. I got a job. I was running my businesses at the time, so I just felt it was a good time to leave, and I left. But I've never stayed in a place less than 6 months afterwards. So.
Yeah. Right, so considering, let's look at, you mentioned service here and all of that, and I think one of a top priority question for most young graduates or fresh graduates, so to say, and people finishing their service here is, okay, I'm done studying this particular course from the university and I don't know where to go. So how do I define my next career movement? Because when you ask out of 100, when you ask, 99 is going to tell you any job. And you agree with me that in the Nigerian labor market, there's no position as any job anywhere. So you have to define where you're going to. So the question is, how can people as such go through that?
Okay. So I think I cannot answer this call for this person, right? It's very individual dependent, or it's very individual specific. So like I said, I studied business management in school. I didn't study supply chain management. I never knew what supply chain management was, but that was the first job I got after school. It's up to you. You should know what you want out of life. And then most people say, because I've studied this particular course in school, then I can't do something else. No, that's wrong. Right? You can do anything else you want, despite whatever course study. I worked in a bank. I never studied banking and finance. I worked in tech firm. Worked in operation. Worked in FMCG. I never knew anything about FMCG. I never knew anything about Chinonso. So it's important that you take out time to build yourself in certain regards. So if for your NYC and you've studied a particular course and now you're serving, I think you can turn your life around. It just takes one decision. You just have to decide, what do I want? Every single thing falls in purview of this decision, of that question. What exactly do I want? Now, if you can answer that question, what do I want? Then, how do I get what I want? So, what do I want is the first thing. Decide, I want to be this person. And even though you've studied one particular thing in school, start looking for alternatives. Take courses, get certifications. I know people, in fact, there's a particular friend of mine now that she's in the finance line, but she read, what did she read? Geography or something like that in school. But she just decided that she actually wanted to play in the finance line. And so she has an MSc now. She did ICANN, ACCA, CFA now, and all that kind of stuff, certification. So she just decided she was going to do that. She got certifications, she got various certifications, she took courses. So that's the goal, right? If you have a goal, then push yourself towards achieving that goal as much as possible. So there's no silver bullet to these things. There's no, okay, I'll tell you how to. No, it's you. You tell yourself how to. Anyway, I want to do this. You can speak to people in that particular career you're aiming for. What did it take you to get where you are? What are the things I need to do if I actually want to do this? People might tell you it's not possible. You studied this. Don't listen to them. You don't listen. You're not the final authority of your life. You are the final authority of your life. Just ask them, well, what did it take you to get here? Right? And they will tell you, because people like to brag. It's normal. So if you ask them, I've seen you're in a powerful position like that. What did it actually take you? They'll tell you, I suffered. Okay. You suffered. Okay. How did you suffer? And they'll tell you, see, I wrote this exam. It took me months. You'll be noting it down. You can be listening. You are smart. You are noting it down. You took this exam. Okay. I did this one. Okay. I did okay. By the time you've spoken to like 10 people, you have an idea in your head of what it takes to actually succeed at that. And I'll give anybody here I'll give you an idea. If you want to succeed in a particular field, check out how Nigerians are doing very well in that field and who are at the global level. Go on their LinkedIn pages. Check what they did. Check their academic history. Check their professional history. That gives you an idea of what it takes to get there.
Yes.
It's very simple. So even if you can't even speak to people, just go and check LinkedIn. Just check LinkedIn, check all the things. If you see that this person took this course, this person took this course, just do it. So I have a friend who is a professional tester, who is a QA tester, and he did this exact thing. He saw a particular Nigerian that he liked, who is a top QA tester in the world. He said, okay. He went, checked out all the guys' certifications, every single thing. He replicated it. He got a job in a very sweet tech firm. It's not rocket science, it's not hard. It's life, right? So do it, replicate. It's copy and paste, yes, copy it and paste it. But when you're doing it, you don't realize that you are getting the necessary skill that you need to get it. I think I can take one more question and then I have to leave. I'm seriously behind on my next meeting, so I think I have.
All right, so we are so grateful for your time, and I don't think there's any question again in the chat box. I dropped some messages to your DM, right,
Okay.
on LinkedIn, that would like you to pick just one participant for a free CV review. We couldn't introduce that before you started your section, but
Okay.
due to time, so maybe later on you can just identify just one person out of the participant online for a free
Okay.
CV review from
All right.
the
Yeah,
team.
no problem. That's
I thank you so much for your time, and thank you for doing a very great job and diligence in delivering the lecture. I'm sure we are still going to get back to it. For everybody, the recording is on, and we are going to share the recording as once we get the notification across for us to go through it. And I have some, you reminisce over it again, because I had some notes jotted down, even though I was distracted with other works. In the absence of none, I know I'll be handing over to you. Please, let me take over now.
So that's fine. Thank you very much, guys. Bye.
Good night. Thank you all.
Good night.
Thanks, brother.